Well, as I previously stated, one of the biggest issues is going to be the reconstruction of our infrastructure. We're not going to be able to attract industry into the community if we don't have the essential ingredients in order to provide them when they get here. So if we don't have reliable potable water or reliable high-speed internet, as an example, that's the way industry works nowadays. They're not, we're into a new technology era where we are so far behind that we need to desperately catch up just in technology alone. So, one of the things that hasn't been exercised since the Big Bear Creek Agreement was signed over 10 years ago is we haven't gone to establish those 4 other First Nations that would be known as Chippewa within our treaty territory. And those that know the map and look at the map of the Big Bear Creek, and those that don't should come look at the map of the Big Bear Creek territory. We've got an opportunity of acquiring parcels of land anywhere within that territory. And why was that territory drafted up that way? It was drafted that way because it took in the most essential things that business needs. It took in the 401, 402, and 403. That's the heartland in the industrial transportation corridors of Canada. It took in major water pipelines from Lake Huron and Lake Erie that feed the cities now. It took in also the biggest gas repository in Canada, and that's come right from the Big Bear Creek area, where the natural gas is being stored as we speak, is being stored by Enbridge, being pumped out through Texas, fracked through Ohio, put the gas down through Alberta, refined in Texas, shipped back, and ends up within the heart of that Big Bear Creek territory. And for those that don't know it, from Sarnia almost to Windsor down to Lake Erie, through Chatham, it's like a honeycomb. The ground is like a honeycomb. And so when oil was first struck here in Canada, where was it struck? Oil Springs. Why do they call it Oil Springs? Well, that's where the first oil products started. Petrolia, another place. It makes sense when you know your history. So I would urge anyone, review your history. Get to know your history. Get to know your treaty territory. When I say it's a rights-based agenda, this is our treaty territory. You have to know it. And Enbridge, what they've done is bought out Union Gas. And they now pump liquefied natural gas, and it's held in those big underground, and it's pumped throughout the summer. And they fill it up. Why? Because come winter time, the fall time, the valves get opened up and it goes across through New York State to Boston and as far down as New York City. We're heating the entire east coast of the United States. Think about how much gas is coming through our treaty territory and we're not getting anything from it. So it's time to stand up for our rights. When we talk about later on reconciliation, how do you make reconciliation? Reconciliation is not by saying I'm sorry. There's economic reconciliation that needs to take place at the same time. So when we look at what are the long-term sustainable growth, it's exercising your right. Begin to exercise your right. In the treaty, if you ever read the treaties, and I would urge everyone to do this, become familiar with your own history. Nowhere does it ever state that we gave up airspace. Few people understand that every time you see an airplane fly over, they're paying the Canadian government for airspace. Why is the Canadian government the only one receiving the revenue for airspace? There's satellite time. CRTC regulates that, a government agency. They provide satellite space. Who gave them the right to our airspace? Those are the discussions I think that we have to start initiating and bringing forward. Because if there wants to be reconciliation, let's deal with reconciliation full scale, all of it, not piecemeal.